All right, all right, all right. Another episode for Chainlink Sports Talk, and I have the director of baseball operations for the Vandy boys over at Vanderbilt. We have Brooks Webb here. Brooks is a big part of what Vanderbilt does in their baseball program, and anybody who's a sports fan, anybody who's definitely a baseball fan knows Vanderbilt's track record and their history. So, Brooks, thanks for coming on, and taking the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Nico. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So, first question I want to ask you is that I mentioned the Vanderbilt program, and I want to know is what makes it so special, and besides the talent, because you guys I'm sure are really great at recruiting and getting the top talent in most of the graduating classes, but I guess the real question is like, what's the culture like there, and like how can you guys maintain such a steady level of success?
I mean, I think there's a lot of components that go into what make all successful sports organizations so unique. And when you talk about dominance or teams that win at a high level, that can be very subjective depending on what you're trying to achieve. And I think to me, what's really interesting about Vanderbilt or all sports organizations that perform at a high level, there's so many different ways to succeed in how you operate a program on a daily basis, if you will. So guys like Nick Saban are different from Dabo Swinney, and guys like Tim Corbin are different than Skip Bertman or Augie Garrido.
Yeah.
So I do think all of these things, they intersect no matter what the personality is of the leader at the top. But I guess what you'd say is, or I would say is most clearly defined, are the clear-cut expectations of those that are around them or they surround themselves with on a daily basis. So to me, that goes for your coaches. It goes for your support staff. And in turn, the players that you recruit for your university or for your organization. And when you can accumulate a group of people that I think all aspire to just simply challenge themselves to get better on a daily basis.
Have a common goal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you're trying to just eventually experience success, no matter what you term that success. But when you challenge yourselves to get better on that daily basis, success is not always going to happen on your watch. But I do think that's what our program and Corbs has become so good at, is assembling groups that have harmony to them and that mesh very well. Because everybody wants to develop players. Everybody says, I want to develop players on and off the field. I think we all want to do that as coaches or working in sports, and everybody wants to win. But not everybody wants to be disciplined enough, I would say, to prepare and train at the highest level you can every single day and hold those around you accountable in those same ways. I think that's what it gets back to is, that group, not just having 5 or 10 guys who are willing to commit, not just having a coach who is willing to commit, but you have to have the guys in the locker room, the staff, all, pulling that rope in the same direction. And we've got such great diversity in our program on all levels, socioeconomically, geographically, right, ethnically, kids who have been exposed to a lot of different things and a lot of varying backgrounds, which to me is really important too, to the success, because that's really what life is. No matter what you go on to do in your career, living in accord and kind of loving those around you, no matter what they look like or where they come from, that's what the world is. And it takes I think it takes a different type of personality to succeed in that environment and to kind of crave that on a daily basis. So when your staff can get that diverse group of 35 guys each year to operate and kind of invest in that fashion, I think you're going to move the needle in the right direction. And that's made Coach Corbin so successful. I'd say, everywhere he's been, whether it's, his, starting the program at Presbyterian or his success as an assistant at Clemson, or, being here at Vanderbilt since 2002, it's just his commitment to, I would say, personal growth every single day, both for himself, the people that are around him, who he surrounded himself with from the beginning. Eric Backett, Michigan, who we played for the national championship in 2019. Derek Johnson, the pitching coach for the Reds, Travis Jewett, who's the head coach at Tulane, and then even guys who played in this program that want to come back and be a part of it now, like Mike Baxter and David Macias, who are two of our assistant coaches, or pitching coach Scott Brown, who's been here since 2013 and just does a tremendous job. They're very creative, like-minded, individuals, but they've got different personalities too, just like a team, and they all fit so well as a piece to that puzzle. But they have a firm understanding, I would say, of what the right type of player is for Vanderbilt,
Yeah.
not just SEC baseball, but Vanderbilt. And I know you've come across kids that have played in this program and have left this program on this podcast, and it's a huge commitment for these kids and their families,
Absolutely.
financially and paying to go to school here, academically, and the way that they'll be challenged with a top 15 education, all while obviously the demanding and yet rewarding lifestyle of playing baseball at the Division I level and in the SEC, which in most cases will pay them back tenfold at the end with a degree or professional baseball or both. But I think that's what makes the environment very unique. And positions are always rented. I think they're always rented here at Vanderbilt. That's something
Oh
Coach
yeah.
Corbin does all the time. And again, that gets back to life, right? It's never something that you own because somebody's always gunning for your seat. And that's the mindset that Coach Corbin takes every day. It's the mindset I try to take every single day. And I think our players have that, instilled in them too. So I think that's, in a nutshell, what makes it different. And, baseball's, you're a baseball guy, so you get this, baseball is very special in the fact you don't see a lot of other sports they really have professional sports leagues like the NBA, MLB, NFL, where teams like Coastal Carolina and Fresno State can reach, the pinnacle of the sport and
Oh
win a
yeah.
national championship.
Yep.
And that's what's so special about college baseball, man, is that, any given year you can have the best team in the country and doesn't guarantee that you're going to, win a national championship. So different groups different groups that are built in different ways can still have, the same amount of success. And I do think that's what, makes our program unique is that no matter what the personalities are, the foundations don't change. Our alumni, guys who have played in this program that have built it, that didn't have the nice facilities and didn't have the Nike sponsorships or those type of things that built this thing. They play here, they graduate, they go on to play pro ball, and you still have 30 plus of those guys that come back and train here in the off season and ultimately model for our current team, and they get to see and emulate what they want to be, where they want to go. But to me, it's like, Nico, it's almost like a continuation of a book. It's like another chapter kind of in their Vanderbilt story where
Right.
every year as a freshman, sophomore, junior, it's like, you're the protector at one point, you're the teacher, you're someone to hold them accountable, but it's just the older brothers teaching the younger brothers kind of how things work. And you're the student as a freshman, and then you go on to be the teachers you get older. And that's what we all want to do in life, right? Is pass on the lessons and the standards that have shaped us, and in order to make those who come after us and whatever it is that we do it even better than we did. And I think that's what makes it a lot of fun to be around every day. And I think how our kids approach their work on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned Coach Corbin a lot in that answer, and I will touch upon Coach Corbin too, because he's definitely a big part of how Vanderbilt has been able to shape, the new culture and their stretch of dominance. But before we talk about that, I want to know kind of the different roles that you've served with USA Baseball as well, because you work with them a lot, or used to work with them before Vanderbilt. So, how are your roles with USA and Vandy differ, and like the transition between the two?
Sure. Well, I worked at USA Baseball from I think around 2012 until I left for Vanderbilt in August of 2016, and I got to serve as the director and general manager of the 15 and under national team. And I think at the core of it, there are a lot of similarities between the two. Certainly worked with a ton of great people at both places. The responsibility, I would say, for upholding a standard of excellence and success was there at both programs. And both were really competitive environments, which I love. I think if you work in sports and you're not competitive, you're probably going to get chewed up and spit out. But that made it
Absolutely.
fun. Made it fun to go to the office every single day and be in that competitive environment. And you almost have to pinch yourself when you realize what you're getting to do and working in sports if you really do, if you really are passionate about it. USA Baseball, the day-to-day interactions were more with, I would say, like the organizational staff at the national headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. on a yearly basis. But when you're kind of running a national team or the director, GM, you have a separate national team staff that you work with too. But that only happens during the summer. So a lot of those relationships were remote based until you really get into the thick of the national team selection process, which happens over the course of, kind of the summer months. And that can be tough because you're seeing a lot of the people that you work most closely with or become very, very good friends with. You only get to see them a few weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
And in many ways there, I was my own boss. And the fact that if the program succeeded or if the program failed, ultimately that fell back on my shoulders. And we had tremendous, kind of organizational oversight that I would report back to, and Paul Seiler, David Perkins, Ray Darwin, they were kind of our chief executives, and getting to run the entire, baseball ops department as a whole with Ashley Bratcher more on the event and kind of program development side. But Paul and David gave me a lot of freedom and creative authority on how to best run the 15U national team. And they gave me a lot of grace and a lot of room to grow in a time where I really needed it, kind of as a young guy who, had ideas and direction for, where we wanted to take things, but still had a lot to learn and a lot of things that I needed to grow into. And they're two of the very best in the game, and what make, working at USA Baseball, such an incredible place.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, the differences are, you mentioned, Coach Corbin, he's the leader of our program. And we all have a lot of shared responsibility in our roles and, what moves the organization forward in whatever position we have. But when we lose a game, the media and the fans aren't necessarily pointing a finger at me, after a loss, where USA Baseball, I felt that. Win, lose, or draw, I felt that, it was my responsibility, my fault, or, those type of things. So not to say that I don't, because I take losses probably harder than most, much to the frustration of my wife. But that's something that it is his program, and it's easy to follow his lead. And at USA, the process was just different in the fact that it's year to year. It's a year-to-year process, trying to find the best 15-year-old players in the country, or 15 and under players, to compete on the international stage. So you're sifting through thousands of kids to ultimately get down to 20 guys, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Some years when there are a lot of really good baseball players out there, but you're looking for the elite of the elite of the elite. And so when one year ends, the next year starts all over. And there's some similarities in the fact that, you're putting together a recruiting board, just like in college baseball, where you're keeping tabs on kids who are performing at a high level at younger ages. But when one USA Baseball year ends, win or lose, the next one just starts all over. I can remember leaving the World Cup in Mexico one summer, and within like 48 hours, being back at the National Training Complex in North Carolina, and we're watching kids for the next year, for 144 kids trying out for next year's team. So just very little time to, I would say, debrief on, what the experience was, either to celebrate your wins, dwell on the success. You didn't get a chance to do that very long. And I actually like that, because you couldn't, kind of sit on your laurels of excitement of a win or be too disappointed in the sadness of a loss. So, that part was fun. The evaluation process really unique, because the jump, and you've lived it, the jump kids make both physically and mentally from 13 to 15. It's a tremendous jump. I've seen kids in September of one year come back in July of the next, and they've grown 6 inches, and they throw 10 to 15 miles per hour harder off the mound.
Right.
So challenging process, but it was so rewarding, because getting to represent your country on the international stage and hearing the national anthem on foreign soil, that is the most special experience you can have in sports. I was so honored to get to do that, so many times, and I'll never, ever take that for granted. I'd say the thing that is, I would say, the biggest difference, and the one thing that I really love about Vanderbilt that was tough about USA Baseball, and it's not USA Baseball's fault, it's just how the structure is set up.
Yeah.
It's always really difficult when you get to the end of the summer of this year-to-year process. And when you get done, win or lose, and you head back from your international trip, everybody just goes their separate ways. You fly back from Colombia or Mexico or Japan or wherever you've been, and then 40 people go 40 different ways, and
Yeah.
that finality is just severe, right? Nobody likes finality unless, and we all like closure in some form or fashion. There's just no closure, even when you win, and you
Yeah.
don't know when you're going to see many of those kids or those faces again. And you've formed this bond that it's really unrivaled because so few people get to represent Team USA, right? So you've been in the trenches of international competition, and if you come out with a gold medal or you don't, there's very little time to look back on it. It's like an abrupt halt to a high-speed journey, and boom, it's over. And you get
Yeah.
to keep in touch with them, over FaceTime, phone
I've
calls,
always
text.
wondered like that structure with the teammates, because these are the best players in the country,
Mhm.
and like, for example, you have guys like Adley Rutschman and then Jared Kalenic and Pete Crow Armstrong, just like all these guys who were recently drafted, but they come from all different parts of the country and they come together for this team. And you know, I've always wondered this, seeing all these top talents like, in America, and then like these guys seem close, but then like you said, it is like an abrupt halt. So like that is like an interesting dynamic that you guys have, or that USA Baseball has with all their players.
Yeah, it is because of how unique that experience is and kind of what you're asked to do. Take 40 guys during trials and get it down to 20. I think the as a staff, we were always trying to figure out, like, how can we put in team components over the course of this trials and training period where these guys feel like they are a group and a team, because all of the other countries that you compete against, they're not going under that same process. Many times they've been playing together for years. So you're trying to
Yeah.
take a group of 20 kids that haven't played together, Adley Rushman, Pete Crow Armstrong, whoever, that you're putting onto a field that have played together for 5 days and hope that they can win a tournament that takes place over 2 weeks. It's
Right. Right.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, but that's also the challenge and the part that makes it fun. And I think what does make those relationships, very, very unique. And that's what's different about, Vanderbilt. You do get to, you get to recruit these kids. You get to know them in high school. You get to know their families. And then they
Yeah.
come to Vanderbilt and they get to build a bond over a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you build a bond with them. And you recruit them, they come to school, and then they either graduate or get drafted, and they're going to, most cases they come back. We've got 30 plus pro guys that choose to make Nashville their home in the off season, and they're at our facility every day and they're training. So really it goes well beyond just kind of that 2 week, 3 week, 4 week relationship, and turns into
Absolutely.
a lifelong, lifelong deal, and a friendship in many cases. So I think that's a lot of fun. And I love all those kids from USA Baseball and still talk to them, once or twice a month, and keep in touch with them where I can, and
Right.
see success in pro ball, and have even played against some of them here at Vanderbilt, or have had some that have come and played at Vanderbilt. But
Sure.
um, the relational aspect is very different. I think that's probably, I'd say, the biggest difference between the two.
Okay. And then now, Coach Corbin, head honcho over there at Vandy, like, he came over when Vanderbilt wasn't at the same caliber as Vanderbilt is now. Like, it was always, like, obviously academics are always great and the city was nice. So I'm sure it's a fairly easier school to have somebody get recruited to, because obviously it's just a very nice place. And but then, he kind of came over, and that was when kind of like the streak of dominance started, and all these pro guys started coming in, and that the a development of arms, on the pitching staff and the bats too. So what, was it like working with him, and then was it like seeing him as a leader with all those the guys on the team?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've definitely done your research. I mean, when he got here in 2002, everything about the program was in a very different state than it is today. And he's had a lot of help along the way, but he's also, built, he's very much built it from the ground up. And the foundation that he's built, the teams we have still stand on today, and that's what makes it so special. Is it is a very foundational program, and the people that have invested. You said the pro guys that started to come, guys like David Price, that were kind of that first big recruit that, really knocked down the wall for Vanderbilt to start getting that type of player on a routine basis. I think that was, I think every program can point to that, that one moment in that one class. But even those early teams, like Mike Baxter, our recruiting coordinator and hitting coach now, he was on one of those first teams that Corbs had. And we talk all the time about what those falls look like and what those training sessions look like and how this thing was built. So he just, nobody's going to have a greater appreciation than of that than someone who played in it.
Yeah.
And, I know, Corbs has, I'm sure, changed a lot since 2002 and 2003, but in a lot of ways, he is still, like I said, very foundational. I think he knows what works and what fits here at Vanderbilt. And when you get to work for somebody like him, he just makes it really simple to follow his lead, because he's never going to ask you to do something he wouldn't do himself. He'll never ask you to put in more hours than he does, because that would be an impossible task to begin with.
Right.
It just helps everyone inside the program, because you just want to model, the same behaviors that you see him live out on a daily basis. He's very consistent in everything he does. He's one of the most competitive people on the planet. And that's led to, a lot of success. It goes well beyond competing for championships. And I would say really spans, over decades of just developing people at a high level, high achieving individuals on and off the field. You don't hear him talk a lot about championships. You don't hear him ever talk about Omaha or winning the SEC or trying to win 50 games a year. He doesn't talk like that. And, I think
Right.
so many people caught up on, wanting to win championships. And I don't want to speak for Corbs at all, but I do know he's very intentional about everything he does. Every decision he makes has a purpose. Is it going to make the program better or not? Is it going to help our kids or not? And, who he brings inside the program with some of the coaches I mentioned earlier, or our support staff, our player development staff, and the players that he recruits. They understand there's an expectancy that comes with any role that you're fortunate enough to get to serve here at Vanderbilt. We talk all the time about, we don't have titles. We don't have titles in our program. My bio might say director of baseball operations, but it's either, am I making the program better or am I making it worse? Because that's what our kids deserve. And for all of us to be
Yep.
aligned with, that same investment in mind, makes it, makes it a lot of fun. Because when you work with somebody like Coach Corbin, you see how he operates on a daily basis. You see the behaviors that he, puts out. He's quick to accept blame, even when it isn't his to accept. He gives credit to everybody he possibly can around him. I think, at the places he's been before Vanderbilt, or constantly seeking out people he can learn from. He's got a great group of mentors who I think he's taken, many of their best parts and tries to apply and use them on a daily basis. But he's a lifelong learner, and he's a teacher at heart, which a lot of coaches just, don't do. Coaching is teaching. And a lot of, I think, coaches get hung up on, well, I just want to win championships. Well, you can't win if you don't teach. And he's really good at that.
Absolutely.
I mentioned he's very competitive, but, I'm an incredibly competitive person at everything that I do. And Vanderbilt's a very competitive environment. And that's a lot of fun to me. Challenges and getting to compete are very driving. And we get a lot of that at Vanderbilt, trying to set the standard, in everything that we do. And, Corbs is he's always finding ways, I would say, to teach new lessons or reteach old ones in a new way. He loves to ask questions that, stimulate others around him, to get great conversation going, but he never strays from that foundation. I'd say both personally or with the program. And, he and his wife, Maggie, have been doing this a long time, and they make a great team. They've changed a lot of lives, I know, and continue to do so to this day. But it goes beyond wins and losses for him. It's not a job. Championships are never, the goal, and it really is a lifestyle to him. And I think that's why it makes it, very, very simple to follow his lead on a daily basis for all of us.
Right. Yeah, and then his hard work definitely shows with the kind of kids that he brings in, and then like you said, them coming back and stuff. So just the foundation that he's built there is absolutely amazing. And last question I have for you is, if you could watch, or if you could put together the 2014 national championship team and the 2019 national championship team, who do you think would come out on top in that game, or maybe like a 7-game series, or I don't know, whichever one you would say?
You're trying to get me in trouble with this one, aren't you?
Listen, I don't know these guys. You know these guys, so this is really on you.
Well, I wasn't here for that 2014 team, but I've gotten to know a lot of those guys that are on it, and you got a lot of those players are in professional baseball and in the big leagues right now.
Yeah.
And that's something that, a lot of fans and donors and even the players on both of those teams want to know. And they've even asked Coach Corbin, like, hey, who would you pick? Yeah. Who would you pick? And they're different teams. Their stories are really different. the 2014 team, I think, had over like 20 guys who went on to play professional baseball, 5 that are in the big leagues. I think you got 3 pitchers and 2 hitters in the big leagues. What's kind of crazy about that 14 group is they would probably be the first to tell you they were a lot better team in 2015 when they lost in the national championship series, because there were some stretches that year, if you just go back and look at their schedule, where they needed to experience some growth and coming together as a team. Like they got 10 run ruled in the SEC tournament. They ended up going home early from that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The week before the regional, and they lose 2 games there, and then just became the hottest team in America and went on to win it all. The 2019 team was very dominant from start to finish, and it was an older group with a lot of seniors who just led from the very beginning. There was no drama. There were no off the field issues. They were just very disciplined in how they navigated adversity and how they handled every single day. And a great blend of older guys and freshmen that made it fun to watch. And everybody remembers Kumar Rocker at the end of the year and his no-hitter against Duke in the Super Regional. But
Yeah,
everybody just complemented each other on that team so well. We could win games 10-0. We could win games 15-14, and we won some games 1-0. We played Mississippi State in the SEC tournament, and I think we ended up beating those guys 1-0 and beat the SEC pitcher of the year for Mississippi State in a 1-0 game. So we just found different ways to win. Not to say the 14 team didn't, but if you're going to put me on the spot, I think I'd have to go with 2019 just because.
There you go.
Because they did have so many guys and could beat you a variety of ways, and they had a lot of power. I think we led the country in home runs, and we just we found ways to win ball games. And there weren't many times where we saw a pitcher where I felt like our offense couldn't navigate a way to score some runs. Defended at a high level, played the game very smart. But in a 7-game series, anything could happen. You match up those 2 teams. You're talking Tyler Beatty, Carson Fulmer, and Walker Buehler throwing in a 7-game series for that 2014 team. If you played once, I think you could probably lean towards the 19 team. But if you played 7 times, that 14 team would definitely have an opportunity to win that.
That's fair.
Tough to pick. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brooks, you've been really generous with your time, and I appreciate you coming on. And it was definitely really cool talking to you. So thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, Nico. Anytime. So thanks again.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye now.